Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our subject, of course, is entitled An Islamic View of Gog and Magog, and the methodology for explaining the subject is that always you turn to the Quran. That the Quran first establish the knowledge of the subject for you. No, you don't go to the Hadith first, you go to the Quran first. And secondly, that when you go to the Quran, you must get all the material in the Quran on the subject and combine it all as a harmonious whole. And thirdly, that when you go to the Hadith, you must ensure that the Hadith is harmonious with the Quran. If the Hadith is in conflict with the Quran, you put it aside. There is a book of mine downstairs entitled Methodology for Study of the Quran. I wish the Darul Ulooms would start teaching that book, how to study the Quran. If they were studying the Quran the way it ought to be studied, you'll get a different answer from the Darul Uloom to the subject that I'm lecturing on tonight. The subject is also of tremendous importance because of its direct relevance to the world in which we are living today. One of the things that astonished me when I arrived in Britain for the first time last August, I came to see my grandson. I had not visited Britain for 15, 16 years. I came to see my grandson, and I didn't know what kind of reception I'd get, but I had to see my grandson. He was 3 years of age, and I'd never seen him before in my life. But the British immigration treated me very respectfully. And when I entered Britain to meet my grandson, I found this phenomenal hunger in the hearts of the young people, particularly those born in Britain, for the knowledge of that which explains the reality of the world today from the Quran. It was not being given to them in Britain. And Allah had blessed me with that knowledge. And so they were flocking to me. And that is why I have to keep on now returning to Britain, but on short visits and always.
Sheikh, the sisters are struggling to hear you with the mic.
Maybe you need a more powerful microphone, okay. We will have to begin with material outside of the Quran, as in this case of Dajjal, because our Prophet ﷺ described him as Al-Masih al-Dajjal. That's the starting point, not the Quran. Starting point. But then after that we go to the Quran. Similarly with this subject. The origins of this subject are located in the fact that the people of Mecca, the mushrikun of Mecca, who were worshipping idols, could not understand how to assess the claim of a man who was born amongst them and who had lived a life of such distinction of truth that they had given him the name Al-Amin, the truthful one, the trustworthy one. And now he declares, I am a prophet of the one God, like unto Ibrahim alayhi salam, Moses, Musa alayhi salam. How can we tell whether or not he is truthful? So they sent a delegation to the rabbis who were in the north, a city called Yathrib, today is known as Medina, to ask the rabbis, how can we tell whether or not he is a prophet? And the rabbis responded by saying, ask him these 3 questions which only a prophet can answer. Oxford University cannot answer. Ask him about the young men who fled into a cave. Ask him about the great traveler who traveled to the two ends of the land, and ask him about the ruh. And Allah sent down the answers. And we are concerned today with the answer to the question about the great traveler. And the answer is located in Surah Al-Kahf of the Quran. I have written a book entitled Surah Al-Kahf in the Modern Age. And in that book we have dealt with all the three questions and the answers to all three questions in that book. Surah Al-Kahf in the Modern Age is available downstairs. In answering the question, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first repeated the question. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ Zulqarnain مَعَلَوْزُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. And they question thee about Zulqarnain. And Qarnain means two curtains. And our methodology in seeking to understand what's the meaning of qarn is to ask the Quran to explain it, to go outside of the Quran. Qarn can mean a horn, and qarn can mean an epoch, an age, a people, a generation. But when we go to the Quran for the Quran to explain the Quran, then the meaning that comes from the Quran is not horn. Allah does not use the word qarn in the Quran for horn. So this is an event now which will be repeated twice. Qarnain. Two ages, two epochs, two people. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. Two. And Zulqarnain is the one who possesses power that Allah gave to him, and who possesses faith in Allah. And so with Zulqarnain, at that age, the first age, power manifests itself in the world on the foundations of faith. Welcome to Maulana Abdul Haq. Power rests on the foundations of faith. When power rests on the foundations of faith, how will power be used? He travels on his first journey to one end of the land. And when he came to the end of the land, it ended in water. And so if he's traveling to two ends of the land, there'll be water here and there'll be water there. So we're now beginning to get some idea of the geography of the subject. You do study geography in Britain, don't you? Okay. So there's a body of water on this side where the sun rises, where the sun sets, which is normally the west, is it? Yeah. And there's another body of water where the sun rises, which is normally the east. I don't know about Britain. But in between there's a land. And he travels to the two ends of this land, the two ends of this land. We know, subsequently, I have to fast forward now, that on one of these journeys, not the first and not the second, but the third one, that the rabbis did not ask about. They only asked about the first and the second because they wanted to know whether he knew about the third. And the third led him to Gog and Magog. And our companions were sitting amongst themselves, talking amongst themselves, when Nabi Muhammad ﷺ passed by and asked, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "We are talking about Alamatus Sa'ah, the signs of the last day." And then he replied in a very famous hadith that the last day would not come, and then he mentioned 10. And these have come to be known as the major signs of the last day. And among them are Dajjal, the false Messiah, Al-Masih Dajjal. Number 2, Gog and Magog. Number 3, the return of the Son of Mary. Number 4, Dukhan. Number 5, Dabbatul Ard. Number 6, that the sun will rise from the west. Number 7, 8 and 9, 3 earthquakes. But these are earthquakes in which the sun, the earth sinks down. So it's called a khas. One in the east, one in the west, and the third one in, no, don't be afraid, not Birmingham. The third one in Arabia. And number 10, that a fire would come out of Yemen and drive people to their place of assembly. These are not given in the order in which they will occur. No, no. So amongst them is Gog and Magog. And on the third journey he reaches to Gog and Magog. And he builds a barrier to contain them, which we'll come to later. But when they are released, when Allah releases them, they're going to pass by the Sea of Galilee on their way to Jerusalem. The word Jerusalem does not occur in the Quran and in the Hadith because we have a different terminology for it. The Sea of Galilee does not occur in the Hadith. We have a different word for it. So don't come and write a whole book and say there's no Jerusalem in the Quran. That's nonsense. We have Baytul Maqdis. What we call Baytul Maqdis, you call Jerusalem. Okay? So they will pass by the Sea of Galilee, but in the Hadith it's not called the Sea of Galilee, it's called Buhayrat al-Tabariyah, or Tiberias, Lake Tiberias. If you are passing by the Sea of Galilee and you're heading for Jerusalem, then if you studied any geography, you know you're coming from the north. So now our geography of this subject in the Quran is becoming clearer. We're talking about a land which is north of the Holy Land, in which there's a body of water on the left and a body of water on the right, and there's only one that qualifies, only one, not two. The Mediterranean Sea is on the left, but nothing on the right. So it has to be the Black Sea on the left and the Caspian Sea on the right. And the land between them would be the land on which he traveled to the two ends of the earth. Here is the Black Sea, and there is the Caspian Sea, but don't we have a map with both? There's the Black Sea, and this is the Black Sea again. We don't have it. Yeah, we don't have it. Oh, here we are, there we are. This is the Caspian Sea here, this is the Black Sea there, and this is the land that he travels from this direction to this direction. This is the setting of the sun here, and this is the rising of the sun here. So when he reached the setting of the sun, Allah gave him the power to pursue whatever objective he chose to pursue. Nothing could stand in his way. When he reached the Black Sea, he then gave a demonstration of his power at the Black Sea. When power rests on the foundations of faith, how will power be used? This is the first of the Zulqarnain, the two. The first time, here we are. Zulqarnain, the first time is right here at the Black Sea. And Allah says to him, how will you deal with these people? And he says, whosoever is guilty of acts of wickedness, oppression, injustice, I'm going to punish them. And when I'm finished with them, and they go to you, you will also punish them. But those who have faith and are righteous in conduct, I will treat them nicely and I'll reward them. This looks like someone who worships Allah. This looks like someone who is a follower of a Nabi. Okay? This looks like Islam, the way Islam came in the world. We don't tolerate oppression. And we reward those who have faith and are righteous in conduct. When the second of the two currents is to come, you better watch that area. Watch that area, the Black Sea. Having said that, we now proceed to the second journey. He travels in the direction of the rising of the sun. So he's going east. And when he reached to the end of the land, meaning the water, the Caspian Sea, he came across a people, لَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُمْ مِنْ دُونِهَا سِتْرًا. He came across a people for whom we had provided nothing to cover them, except that which was natural. Hence a people living a primitive way of life, and Allah knows best. When power rests on the foundations of faith, how will power deal with a primitive people? Allah responds with only one word, one solitary word. That's the economy of language in the Quran. Kazalik. Meaning, He met them like that and He left them like that. When power rests on the foundations of faith, power respects the rights of even the primitive people. We do not ride roughshod over the rights of even a primitive people to explore and exploit the oil reserves under them. Ship them to Siberia and then explore the oil? No. Not when power rests on the foundations of faith. Power puts the rights of human beings first. And then he traveled in the third direction. And it was a mountain range, and there you can see the mountain range, the Caucasus Mountains, and there was a pass between the mountains. Only one solitary pass. Maybe we have it. There we are. That's the pass there. That's the pass there. And there is where it's located. In between. Now today that pass is a military highway built by the Soviet Union. When you reach to this pass between the mountains, the Quran gives you a description of the pass. It speaks of Sadafain. Sadafain is the two sides of a shell. The two sides of a shell. One side like this, you see, and the other side like this, like a shell. Over there again, like a shell. Sadafain. The geography of the Quran, mashallah, is becoming clearer and clearer to identify the location. You got to be careful with the geography. And there he came across a people, لا يكادون يفقهون قولا, whose language could not be understood. Why? Because they had a unique language unrelated to the regional languages. And that is precisely what is the Georgian language to this day. This is Georgia. Yeah. The Georgian language to this day is a language which is unrelated to all its neighbors, all the regional language. And these people then said to him at the pass, Inna Ya'juj wa Ma'juj mufsiduna fil ard. Surely Gog and Magog are committing fasad in our land. Can you help us? Can you build a barrier? They use the word sad, a wall. We are prepared to pay you if you can build this, to protect us from these evil Gog and Magog who are corrupting us and destroying us. Fasad, corruption and destruction. Zulqarnain should have said, I don't need to build any wall. No, I have the power to do whatever I want. Anywhere on the face of the earth. Allah has given me that power. So I'll just go in there and teach them the lesson of their life. And they'll never touch you again. Not after I've finished with them. But strangely, he doesn't do that. Because he does not have the power to destroy them. So we're dealing with something terrible here. These are evil beings. These are wicked people who commit fasad, that which corrupts and destroys, but who have a power greater than that of Zulqarnain. He cannot destroy them, but he can do something else. He can contain them so that they are rendered helpless. In the language of a game called chess, we say you can checkmate them. So they are rendered helpless. And he says, I don't need your money. Just help me with manpower. Bring me blocks of iron. And in that region over here, there is an abundance of iron ore up to this day. Up to this day. And then he took the blocks of iron and he built a wall, an iron wall. And then he built a fire and he said, blow with your bellows. And he took molten copper and poured it on the barrier to prevent rust. When he had completed building the barrier or the wall, step back. He didn't say, I'm going to build for you a sad. They wanted a sad. He said, I'll build for you a radam. A sad is any barrier, any wall. But a radam would be a wall which is built like a dam. Like a dam. Okay? And this is precisely what he built here. Like a dam to block that side from this side. When he built it, he said, هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِنْ رَبِّي. And now this is located in the Quran. هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِنْ رَبِّي. The construction of this dam is an act of mercy from Allah. So the world is safe from these wicked beings. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي. But when that time comes of which my Lord has warned, my Lord God has warned, جَعَلَهُ دَكَّاءَ. Allah is going to bring down this barrier. وَكَانَ وَعْدُ رَبِّ حَقًّا. And Allah's warning will come to pass. We pause now for two things. First of all, there is, I don't know whether you have it in Britain, something called Google Earth. Yes. You know what it is? You don't need to go to a travel agency and buy a ticket, okay, and fly to this part of the world to go and look for the barrier built of iron and steel, blocks of iron. You can go to Google Earth and search the whole earth from your sitting room. Not one person, from the day that the Quran was revealed to this day, not one human being has ever seen that barrier. There is a report in one of the books of Tafsir that the Khalifa had sent a delegation for search for the barrier. And they came back to say that they found it lying in ruins. But to this day, no one has seen the barrier standing, no one. So it looks as though they've been released. If you say they have not been released, you have a duty to the Quran. I'm talking to every single Darul Uloom in this country. If you say they have not been released, then at least this much integrity you should have. You should go and search for the barrier. And I'm saying to you, you can go and search, but you'll never find it. Because no one has ever seen it. None. So it looks as though they've been released. But we have something else to do before we proceed. Who are Gog and Magog? Allah created three kinds of beings. He created the angels, He created the jinn, and He created human beings. This is apart from plants and animals. So Gog and Magog have to be either angels, or jinn, or human beings. Why? Because plants don't commit fasad. And animals don't commit fasad. So we can eliminate plants and animals. Do angels commit fasad? No. وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. Angels act only on the basis of Allah's instruction. So eliminate angels. So Gog and Magog have to be either jinn or human beings. Can jinn commit fasad? Oh yes. And can human beings commit fasad? Oh yes. So now, are Gog and Magog jinn or human beings? Ah yes. You need only 5 rupees worth of intelligence, not more than that, to know that you cannot contain jinn with a barrier made of blocks of iron. Only 5 rupees worth of common sense. The jinn can pass over the barrier. The jinn can pass through the barrier. So the implication is that Gog and Magog have to be human beings, nothing else. Good. Where do human beings live? The Quran answers. The Quran says that when Allah sent Adam alayhi salam and mankind on earth, He says, وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌ. That you are going to live on earth. The Quran never said you're going to live inside the interior of the earth, the bowels of the earth. Again, only 5 rupees worth of intelligence, that's all, not much. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌ وَمَتَاعٌ إِلَى حِينٍ. That you'll be provided with your sustenance, your veggies and your milk and your meat from the earth. The interior of the earth don't have any animals. No cows down there, no goats down there, no sheep down there. I have to restrain my anger because I don't know where these people came from, Mars or Venus or Jupiter or where. They say Gog and Magog living down in the interior of the earth, and in doing so they disrespect the Quran and they insult their own intelligence. Manifest disrespect for the Quran, worse than schoolboys. And they are insulting their own intelligence. Because Allah says, I sent you on earth. On earth you will live. And the earth will provide you with your sustenance, your roti. Therefore, if Gog and Magog are human beings, how on earth can they be living down in the interior of the earth? If any hadith says that, would it not be in conflict with the Quran? So let us dispose of that, excuse my language, that rubbish, and proceed. When Zulqarnain traveled in the direction of the setting of the sun. He gave a demonstration of the use of power. That power is used to punish the oppressor, to punish those who are wicked and unjust, who commit zulm. And when he traveled in the direction of the rising of the sun, he gave another demonstration of the use of power, when power rests on the foundations of faith. And that is, power respects the rights of people, even when they are primitive people. And so when the second of the two currents is to occur, it will have to be after Gog and Magog have been released. Are you following me? There are two currents. This is the first. A second is to come. When will the second come? It will have to be after Gog and Magog is released. Then you can have the second current. Why? Because in the first current, he checkmated Gog and Magog. So in the second current, he will have to checkmate Gog and Magog again. Are you following me? So in between, what's going to happen? The first and the second come. In between, the barrier will be brought down, and Gog and Magog will be released. And when they are released, now there will be a power so powerful in the world that even Zulqarnain cannot destroy them. That's the kind of power it is. We can now leave the Quran, having established the foundation on the Quran, to go to the Hadith. And the Hadith confirms what is in the Quran. Look at my methodology. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, in the Hadith al-Qudsi. You know what's the Hadith al-Qudsi? Oh, I don't have time to check you out today. Hadith al-Qudsi is the direct speech of Allah, but not in the Quran, it's in the Hadith. I have created, this is Sahih Muslim, I have created creatures of mine, Allah is speaking, so powerful that none but I can destroy them. That's why Zulqarnain had to build the barrier. So when they are released, what kind of world will it be? It's going to be a terrible, terrible, terrible world, because there will be no power in the world who will stand up to them. None. None. They will be the most powerful force in the world. And they will use their power exactly the opposite way to Zulqarnain. And so when Gog and Magog are released, power will now rest on foundations which are godless. And power will now be used to oppress. And power will not respect the rights of people, will not respect those who have faith and who are righteous in conduct, but will target them. And power will not respect the rights of the primitive people. The primitive peoples on the face of the earth are going to be wiped out when Gog and Magog are released, because this is the opposite to the demonstration of power from Zulqarnain. So it looks as though they have been released, because that's what we've been experiencing for the last few hundred years. I don't know whether you had your biryani and you went to sleep for a few hundred years, but the rest of us, what we have seen these last few hundred years in the world, is we've seen power. Power resting on foundations which are essentially godless. Power so powerful that none could stand up to it. And power being used ruthlessly to oppress. And power being used to destroy without any regard whatsoever for human rights. Destroy the primitive way of life. And so now they are in settlements, the natives in a settlement. And usually there's a beer factory or wine factory at the beginning, so they all drink alcohol and they would not be conscious of where they are. The primitive peoples are being wiped out all over the world. So for those who have not been eating biryani and going to sleep, the rest of us, it looks very much as though the evidence is plain and clear. Not only is the barrier gone because nobody can see it anymore, but also for the last few hundred years, power in the world has been resting on foundations which are essentially godless. And that power has been used these last few hundred years exactly the opposite way to that of Zulqarnain, to oppress and to destroy and to target those who have faith and are righteous in conduct and to destroy the primitive way of life.